Aloha, it's Dave Lawrence. How you doing? A big mahalo for tuning in today. We have a talented cat on the line. He is on the Big Island for a Hilo Art Department event, the Poetry and Blues Project, with Quincy Troupe, Kelvyn Bell, and friends. They'll do an event Wednesday, Hilo's Palace Theater, Friday, Hilo Campus Center. It includes local artists like Brother Noland and Loisan Yamanaka in Part 1, Sound Art, and in Part 2, Friday, it's Music, Art, and Words, a public conversation. My guest on the line is a monster guitarist. He's known for being part of avant-garde funk jazz group Defunkt, his own band Kelvynator, and is credited by people including the Chili Peppers' Anthony Kiedis as a musical inspiration. A great pleasure to welcome him to my show, guitarist and creative life force Kelvyn Bell. Aloha, brother.
Aloha, how are you?
I am very good. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes for me. I appreciate it, dude.
Oh, man, it's my pleasure, believe me.
And it's nice to have you in the islands. And so how did this show come about? I know Michael over there at the school is instrumental. Give us a little rundown on what happened.
Well, basically, it's pretty much, I don't know how it came about in that sense, but it just so happens that, a lot of us involved in this particular project are native St. Louisans. Professor Marshall is from St. Louis, and those Quincy Troupe, the poet involved, is also from St. Louis. I'm from St. Louis, and Oliver Jackson, who's the visual artist, is also from St. Louis. Basically, there was a group that I came through in my early years in St. Louis during the late 60s, early 70s. There was a group called the Black Artist Group.
That's right.
And this group was sistered up with another organization from out of Chicago called the AACM, the Association for the Advancement of Creative Music. And, the types of music that were involved with some of the bands you may have known, like the Art Ensemble of Chicago that featured Lester Boyd and Don Moyer. And also there was a group called Air, which was Henry Threadgill's group. And then there was also the World Saxophone Quartet, which features Hamid Blewett. And, it was just a wellspring of a lot of artists who had come together, not just musicians, but also poets and writers and playwrights and visual artists as well, sculptors as well as painters. It was like a whole collective of arts, right? So as a kid, I grew up pretty much in an environment that promoted that. I took my first guitar lesson with Oliver Lake, who's one of the saxophonists with the World Saxophone Quartet. So pretty much what we come here to do in Hawaii is to kind of bridge a gap between the two cultures, the African-American culture that came out of St. Louis that spawned all of these artists, as well as the native culture here in Hawaii, because this is part of Black History Month. And we wanted to just have a bridging of cultures as in celebration of that.
I like it.
Okay?
I like it.
Yeah.
And a St. Louis kind of vibe, so we obviously got to get Budweiser, I guess.
yeah, definitely. But, they got bought by a Belgian company. They're owned by a Belgian company now.
I know. What's up with that, man? It's crazy kind of talk. I remember when
Yeah, but we still got the Cardinals, though. We still got the Cardinals.
And just a cavalcade of talent. I like the way it, and you sort of linked all the bridges together. And that's cool you mentioned Oliver. I interviewed him when I was in college many, many, many years ago in Boston.
Yeah, Oliver's great people, man.
Yeah, he
these
is.
are like all of my musical mentors. We say Oliver Lake, Julius Hempfield. These are guys that I pretty much came up with and came through. Then I started this band with Joseph Boyd, who's the brother of Lester Boyd. We started this band Defunkt together.
Right.
Which was in the early days of, we had come from a background of playing a lot of avant-garde jazz, a lot of progressive jazz. But because of our age, I also, starting out in St. Louis, I played a lot of James Brown and all of the R&B stuff. So, we had these other skills. So we decided to put together a funk band, but based on the avant-garde jazz that we were playing to see what would happen. And oddly enough, we became very popular in the punk rock music that was going on in the 80s, like the whole, downtown scene in the 80s, all the clubs like the Mud Club.
Oh,
and,
totally.
Max, Kansas City, Studio 54. Like, we were working all of those rooms back in those days, man,
Well, you guys...
we would do it. Go ahead.
You guys, in so many ways, were kind of like a. You complemented other projects that were similarly provocative in their fusion, things like Bad Brains or Living Color, to name a couple.
Yeah, well, actually, Living Color, Vernon Reed got part of his progression towards Living Color. He was also a guitarist with Defunkt. In fact, when one of the original guitarists stepped down,
Vernon came
Martin
in.
Albert, and then we had a few guitars in between. Then Vernon came in for a stint, and was like the second guitarist in Defunkt. There was always two guitars, bass, and drum for a rhythm section. And around about the same time, Vernon and I started our bands, and also we put together an organization called the Black Rock Coalition, which was an organization to give support to black rock bands, because in New York it was very difficult, during the 80s. Like places like CBGB's, man, they weren't like open to the concept, but we were able to open that door at CBGB's by bringing a coalition of bands. We finally convinced them to let us have a night, and we put in like 3 or 4 different bands. The place sold out. So then, they started giving us weekends, and then after a while, a lot of those bands started to work around clubs in New York without being under the banner of the Black Rock Coalition. So really that whole movement was, and it really led to the success of A Living Color and a lot of other bands that came through Black Rock Coalition, like myself and John Paul Borelli, Michelle Ndege El Cello, also came through that organization. We were very instrumental in a lot of things that were going on in New York, man, dealing with the rock and the jazz world, man.
And it's really cool because as a fan of, I'm a real hardcore fan of the old Funkadelic and also of Miles, and especially when Miles got into his sort of like funk rock psychedelic fusion period there. And so when you think about it, in a lot of ways, Defunkt and some of the work you've done has continued the efforts of those cats, taking it into new territory. Yeah.
Yeah, but Miles is definitely a big influence. I mean, being from St. Louis, being from the same city, of course, it's like being from the same place as Michael Jordan. It's like, wow, we went to the same high school kind of energy. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, maybe I can too.
Right.
So, and I mean, with a lot of places, I mean, Chuck Berry is from St. Louis also. That's another, important icon in the world of rock and roll, as we know. So that whole thing with Defunkt was about, a continuum of the music and the history of the music. And we were very conscious of that when we put the band together. And, and like we became an influence, like you were saying earlier in your opening, like bands like the Chili Peppers and stuff really, borrowed a lot from us. In fact, Anthony Kiedison will tell you that the first song they ever played together as a group was a Defunkt song called DD Funk. That was the first song they played because we were the band they wanted to imitate.
Yeah. Right, and Fishbone, I bet, too, might have picked up a thing or two from...
Fishbone was like it's like that was another energy, too. I mean, Fishbone was almost like, I kind of look at them as like the West Coast version of Defunkt in a lot of ways,
Right.
You know what I mean?
I like
because
that.
They also had a big influence on the Chili Peppers as well, too, and also had a difficult time reaching a certain amount of stardom in comparison to what happened for the Chili Peppers and what happened with them,
When you think,
there was some other great bands too, the Bad Brains, as you mentioned,
Yeah, Bad Brains. There's another one I'm whose name is escaping me, but it's like a Bad Brains-ish kind of thing. I'm gonna try to have it stumble upon me as I'm rapping to you. But when I think about yourself, Kelvyn, stepping back to when you were a younger man and probably being very influenced by sounds as a kid, where did The Last Poets or Gil Scott-Heron fit in? Because I think of your current project, and I can't help but think of those cats.
Well, all of that stuff was an influence. It was really like just the whole movement and the energy of what was happening in the 70s, man, because it was like there was like a step forward. It's usually kind of connected to wars, man. Like after World War II, all of the black men that served in the war, they came back, feeling like they deserved something a little better from America in terms of like how they were treated. And then we saw this whole movement with Martin Luther King in the 50s and so on and so forth. And then so like after the Vietnam War, there was still like, that kind of like resurgence.
I get
it. We deserve better because, we put our lives on the line and thousands of us have died in the name of this and this and that, blah, blah, blah. It's just kind of like a human cycle, with war, right?
An awakening as a result of it, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of what we were doing was a part of that. We were like a part of this like new awakening, man. And and like I said, the music that's a result, connecting into Train and to Bird and the whole Miles thing, and then where he had gone with the electric stuff, we felt it was important to try and take that on to the next level and do something else with that, man. So it's been a great ride. It's a great ride. A lot of stuff still going on. Like I said, we're playing tonight. This thing with that I'm doing with Quincy, it's more like it's again we're trying to move it to the next level. It's like you can see the relationship between Gil Scott-Heron and that his music was pretty much somewhat provocative and maybe to the left. Quincy is really very, very to the left in a more creative kind of way, I think, especially with the fact that he's he's a poetry professor for 34 years and, very learned poet and just an all-around writer in general. He did the biography for Miles Davis. I'm sorry, I got sirens in the background. I'm so sorry.
Could you?
Quincy,
start.
Quincy,
can you start on the top of that Quincy rap now that there's no sirens? Start back over and talk.
Yeah. Quincy. Quincy's a really great poet and writer. In different genres in the writing world, and him being from St. Louis, he kind of represents that same energy as a poet. In fact, Miles pretty much handpicked him to do his biography together because he wanted somebody who had a common voice. And I think Quincy, did an excellent job of bringing Miles' voice to the page with the way that book went down. And some of his other stuff, he also wrote The Pursuit of Happiness. He co-wrote that with Chris Gardner, that biography, which turned into a movie starring Will Smith. So Quincy is a writer, he's really incredible. So what I tried to do is write some music that really follows his writing, point by point, moment by moment, and not so much just playing grooves and being like a groove thing, like a spoken word, but more like a conversation between music and poetry.
Okay? I like that.
Not so much as the music is background, but the music is making as much of a statement as the words themselves, and there's a conversation
between the two
that's taking place. Yes, exactly.
No, I dig. And is there going to be? How does that interact with the local people who are going to be participating in part of it?
Well, we're gonna, Quincy and I are gonna, do what we do. They're gonna do their thing, and then at the end we come together and we'll do something together.
Oh wow, I like that.
At the end to just show, because music, man. If everybody played music, then we have no wars, man. Because then the challenge would be, I'm gonna come bring my band, you bring your band, and we'll see who's the best. You know what I mean? It's like everybody ends up playing together and having a great time.
Well, it definitely sounds like a better solution than maybe soccer games, which always seem to end up in a brawl.
Incredible, isn't it? Incredible.
But because I was going to say, as you were talking, I'm thinking, yeah, music is a great bridge. And in some ways, I was thinking, well, sports are like that too. And then as I thought it, I was like, nah, not as good as what he's saying. Music's a little safer.
Yeah. I mean, especially when guys play together, when they play together, it's like, there's an open spirit that happens that, you find it's like eating together, when different cultures eat together and share their food. And they go, oh, this is great. This is, this tastes like this, and this goes with, your cornbread goes with, with my sushi. You know what I mean? It's like,
channeling a higher power when you come together.
Exactly.
Exactly. I'm with you. Hey, I give you a high five and a big hug. I'm really stoked that you took the time to do this, and I encourage you that if there's going to be another swing through the state and you're going to find yourself on our island here in Honolulu, you look me up. We'd love to have you come by the radio station and really try to do something creative with you, Kelvyn.
Yeah, we'd love to, man. Just go ahead. You got my number, man, so just go ahead and text me all your info, man, with your email and stuff so I can keep you posted, man.
No, I totally will.
And basically, anything I'm doing, man, you can just check me out at kelvynator.com. That's, that's pretty much like how I'm operating from out of there, man.
KELVYNATOR.com for everybody listening.
That's it.
And the great Kelvyn Bell. I hope that you've had fun talking today.
Oh, man, I've had a great time, man. I really appreciate you giving a shout-out and letting me shout-out and invite some folks down to the Palace Theater tonight, man.
Yeah, and let the professor know that we had you on. And
Aloha, this is Kelvyn Bell, and this is a great place to be with Dave Lawrence. When I heard he had an opening for a 420 greeting, I dropped everything. Finally, I get to say these magic words. Hey, Brother Dave, let's make this a happy, healthy 420.
Have a wonderful gig over there, dude.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate the interview, man. All right, all the best to you.
Thanks, Kelvyn. Aloha, brother.
All right. Aloha.